Hey guys, it's Al. How's it going? We are going to do a breakdown of a very popular way of drafting, especially if you're drafting early in draft season, and that is to kind of fade running backs early and go in favor of a more wide receiver heavy approach. To do that, you're going to have to find value at the running back position. So I'm going to break down a bunch of running backs that I've been targeting in the early drafts that I've done on Underdog Fantasy and on DraftKings, to give you some value at the running back position that you should be targeting at their current ADPs, both for the value that they have and the possibility of upside later. Let's go.
He's a legend.
All right, let's get into this. All right. So whether you're doing high dollar, low dollar, sit and goes, tournaments, whatever it is, whatever drafts you're doing, whether they're best ball drafts, whether they're in-season drafts, just transactional drafts, whatever you're doing, the earlier you draft, the more, the less fragile it is to avoid drafting running backs early. We've seen running backs go down at any point. Some people ask the question, why do you draft early anyway? The reason that I draft earlier in draft season, in the end of May, June, July, is that players haven't had a chance, the public hasn't had a chance to kind of coalesce around certain players and their value. So if you're in early on specific players that you're higher on and the public hasn't arrived there yet, the more of an edge you might have, especially in terms of ADP and where players can go. Last year, it was like Will Fuller was being drafted in the 7th, 8th rounds. By the time the end of August got here, he was going in the beginning of the 5th round. So if you were there early and you were high on Will Fuller last year, you were getting a massive discount on him in best ball. Now, yeah, he didn't finish the year, whatever, right? He got suspended. The point still remains that if you are higher on players that the public has not come around on yet, you have a massive edge. This year, it was Ryan Tannehill, who was being drafted in like the 13th round of drafts and is now moved up to like the 8th round or the top of the 9th round because of that deal for Julio Jones. So players' values are going to change all the way through draft season. If you are on the right players, you're going to get a massive value in some of your allocations. And the earlier you draft, it's better to take a less fragile approach. Because of the injuries at the running back position, zero RB has become, or hero RB, or bell cow and chill, or whatever you want to call it, where you either avoid running backs early or you take one stud guy and then fill in the rest later, is a very viable strategy. And it's even more viable the earlier you draft, because of the injury risk at the position. We've already seen one guy go down. It was Cam Akers, which boosted the value of one of the guys who would have been on this list, who was going in the 11th round. Darrell Henderson is now going in like the 5th round of drafts. So if you drafted early, you have a lot of Darrell Henderson, you were drafting as like a 40% guy. I'll get into what I mean with that a little bit later. You then now have a massive profit on Darrell Henderson, and your RB3, RB4 spot now is kind of a starting guy who's going to get 15 to 20 touches a week. And that's what we're kind of looking for with these guys here. So let's take a look real quick at some of these guys. I'm not going to pick any running backs who have an ADP in the first 4 rounds. So 5th round and later only for the running backs in this video. The first one is going to be Mike Davis, who proved that he can do some things last year when given the job. There is really nobody else right now in Atlanta. So the possibility for an awful lot of touches in what should be a high octane offense is there for Mike Davis. If we look at his game log from last year, in the absence of CMC, we see an awful lot of targets. We see, 10 to 20 carries a week. We see, 9 targets, 6 targets. It's not going to be that type of offense. Atlanta doesn't throw the ball as much as Carolina throws the ball to its backs, but you know that he's competent in the passing game. You know that he makes guys miss when he runs the ball, and the volume is there for sure. His ADP currently, and I'm going to use this is DraftKings in the background, obviously, but I'm going to use ADPs from Underdog Fantasy because those are sharper ADPs to me, in my opinion, better drafters on Underdog. So the ADPs do kind of make more sense. Right now, as of today, his ADP is 56. So you can get him in the 5th round of most drafts if that's where you're going. If you draft 1 running back in the first, then 3 running backs, then 3 wide receivers in 2, 3, 4. You can easily get your running back 2 with Mike Davis with a lot of volume there in the 5th round. Next running back, Myles Gaskin has just kind of survived this offseason. A lot of people thought that they were going to replace him. Myles Gaskin was very good last year on a per touch basis and got a good enough amount of volume on a per game basis. His ADP right now on Underdog is 65, and that's a half point PPR site. He is extremely viable in the passing game. Yes, they brought in Malcolm Brown, so he may not get as many goal line carries moving forward, but it's not like he got a ton last year. He's somebody that I've been drafting an awful lot so far this offseason. Yes, there is a possibility that as camp goes on, maybe they bring on somebody that got cut. Maybe they sign a free agent and muck up this backfield a little bit more. I think that Myles Gaskin is going to get 15 touches a game, and the price is just too cheap because of the inclusion in the pass game. And what I think this offense is going to do in Miami, I think it's going to take off a little bit based on the pieces that they added in the passing game. An entire offseason is the number one guy for Tua. I know that Tua is a polarizing figure right now. A lot of people did not see him do well last year, and so they've totally given up on him. Giving up on high pedigree quarterbacks after 1 year is usually a mistake. Usually. Yes, I know that Josh Rosen exists. But I also know that like Jared Goff exists, and the people that gave up on him after his first season saying that there's no way that this kid can run an offense. Look at what the Rams offense did under him. Now he's probably a below average quarterback at this point, but below average quarterbacks can still put up massive points when surrounded by great tools in a very good offensive system. In Miami, adding Will Fuller, adding the speedster from Alabama in the draft as well, means that less attention is going to be paid to the line. And if Myles Gaskin is still getting 15 plus touches in 2021, he's going to be a value at the place where he's being drafted right now, a good 0 RB or hero RB target. Damian Harris, not going to give you much in terms of usage in the passing game. Everybody has a job in New England, and his job as the lead back right now is not going to be to catch the ball. It's James White's job. You can see he topped out at 2 targets in any game, but if he gets the goal line carries, the inside the 5 carries, if he maintains 12 to 15 touches a week, and in 2021, kind of like he was last season, and you know, through the middle of last season when he was healthy, his ADP is extremely friendly right now at 86. So you're going to get him with like a 7th, 8th round draft pick more often than you're not going to get him around that range. So again, if you're going running back heavy early and you're picking him as your 3 or 4 guy, awesome. If you're going 1 running back in the first 7 rounds, if you're going 2 running backs, he's fine as an RB2 or RB3 in a 0 RB type of build. Moving on to our next guy, AJ Dillon. This is where I get into, I call these guys the 40% guys. And Darrell Henderson was in this crowd as well. As you guys who have followed the stream know, Darrell Henderson was one of my top targets. He was kind of a safety blanket for me in the 11th round. A player on a really good offense who should have a role without the player in front of him getting injured. That's extremely important to me when drafting best ball teams. I don't want to just take a lottery ticket in these middle rounds. Best ball drafts are typically 18 to 20 rounds, so different from your home league where the middle rounds are like rounds 5 through 10. Middle rounds in a best ball are 9 through 15, where you're kind of filling out the rest of your roster, as best ball is more of a war of attrition because there's no transactions in those games. What I'm looking for is players that have a path to success, players that have a path to the field, even if the starter plays all 17 games this year. So with Williams gone, AJ Dillon steps into that secondary role, and he is a very big back. And as efficient as Aaron Jones has been inside the 5 in previous years, I can't imagine that they're going to have a guy that's the size of AJ Dillon and not give him some of the work inside the 5-yard line this year. He should be one of those 35 to 40% guys, meaning he will play 35 to 40% of the snaps at running back for Green Bay. He should get 35 to 40% of the running back touches in Green Bay, with Aaron Jones getting the lion's share, 60 to 65% of those touches, which is no different from what they've done in previous years. And if Aaron Rodgers is there, obviously AJ Dillon gets a bigger tick up than if Jordan Love is the starter. And all of these 40% guys are one play away from being the starter, not unlike Darrell Henderson with the Cam Akers injury situation. I never root for injuries, but we know that injuries are a part of fantasy football, and in a game of attrition like best ball is, you want to set yourself up for success. Tony Pollard is another one of those guys. He will have a role in this Dallas offense, which we called the Fantasy Carnival last year. You look at what his usage was down the stretch, and it was solid. These are games where Ezekiel Elliott was available. He was getting targets, which are way more valuable than a carry. He is a better pass game option than run game option. He is going to have that role, be on the field 30-40% of the time, and has that upside if Ezekiel Elliott goes down and he becomes a 15 plus touch guy per week in that offense when Amari Cooper comes back, with CeeDee Lamb, with Gallup, with Jarwin coming back, and Dak Prescott back and healthy. That Cowboys offense is one of, if not the best offense in the National Football League, meaning that if Tony Pollard gets there, great. Tony Pollard's ADP right now sitting at 113. So you're not drafting him until like the 10th round. These are now double-digit draft round guys. Add him to Gus Edwards. Less upside in the passing game. But Gus Edwards is always going to have a role. This is his game logs from last year. You can see pretty much, 10 touches more weeks than he didn't get it. No upside in the passing game. They're just not going to throw the ball to him. J.K. Dobbins getting all the love for good reasons. I mean, they spent a lot of draft capital on him. He's one of the most efficient running backs in the league in an offense that produces efficient running backs because of the style of offense that they have. But again, in best ball, as an RB3, RB4, you can do way worse than getting the Gus Bus on your team. Latavius Murray, another one in that situation. There is no way that Alvin Kamara, just based on history with this coaching staff, I love it when the regime stays the same, when the offense stays the same, when the head coach stays the same. There's clearly been a change of quarterback in this situation, but we know what the roles are. Alvin Kamara is simply not a guy that the Saints are going to be willing to give the ball to 100% of the time. He's never going to pull CMC usage. And by CMC usage, I mean he's not going to get 95+% of the running back snaps and touches for his team, which leaves room for a Latavius Murray. And we've seen Alvin Kamara miss time. And when Alvin Kamara misses time, Latavius Murray becomes one of the best backs in fantasy in an offense that can move the ball. And here's a week where Drew Brees was not there and Latavius Murray was. 28.6 points. You know what he can do in terms of volume. That is most important. Again, you're drafting him right now at an ADP of 134 in Underdog. I think it's a little bit lower, actually, on DraftKings. So I've got him ranked at 133 on DraftKings. We kind of have to slide the rankings around. Another great late round to mid round pick in best ball. If you're looking for running back depth to fill out here, no matter what type of build you go with, right? Like if you're drafting Latavius Murray as your RB4 or RB5, I think you're doing better than most of the rest of the league that's going to get some flyer in the 16th through 18th round, where those are just basically lottery tickets. Now, there's a couple of galaxy brain plays that are left on this list, and that's why I left them to the end. I've mentioned the Cam Akers situation with the Rams. It's my opinion that the Rams are not going to stand pat with the roster that they have and the running back room that they have. It's just a little bit too thin. They've got Darrell Henderson, who I believe is a very good back, but behind him, they've got 2 UDFAs and they've got 2 7th-round picks. I think that they're going to bring somebody in, regardless of whether they're going to sign one of the free agents that's not on a team right now, like Duke Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, Frank Gore, one of those guys, just bring him in to be the complement 40% guy, or whether maybe they have some draft capital left. Who knows? I mean, the 2050 draft is right around the corner, right? They've traded every other draft pick till now. Talked about I like it when the regime stays the same. We've had a regime change in both of these places. This coaching staff and this front office in Jacksonville is not tied to James Robinson. As good as James Robinson was last year, and he was good, right? He was very, very good on a very, very bad team. You know what he can do with volume. If he goes to the Rams and it's kind of a two-headed monster, like they were in most games last year, with Malcolm Brown being the guy, or Henderson being the guy, or Cam Akers being the guy, he becomes extremely viable. And right now, his draft price is, where is he? 94 is his ADP currently on Underdog. So pretty cheap there if you want a galaxy brain and hope for a trade to the Rams. If he stays in Jacksonville, I still think that he's a good value, but not amazing, because of it's just too many chefs, too many chefs in the kitchen. You've got Etienne, who they drafted. The coaching staff is not married to this guy. Who knows how they're going to deploy him this year. And if he gets not as much usage in passing game and they just run the ball with him 12 times and he plays like 40% of the snaps, then it kind of sucks. So it's just a very crowded running back room there. The Denver Broncos don't seem to be enamored at all with Melvin Gordon, drafting right over his head. And his ADP has fallen. He also wasn't all that good last year, even though he can eat up an awful lot of volume. He can carry the ball a ton, but like Javonte Williams being added to this team and being drafted 5 rounds ahead, with Melvin Gordon's ADP being 121, like a 12th round draft pick right now. If they cut him and he signs somewhere else where there's more of a path to playing time, if they deal him to the Rams where there's more of a path to playing time, all of a sudden that 12th round pick gains a lot more volume and a lot more value. So you're going to kind of have to project on those last two, the James Robinson and Melvin Gordon. All of the other players have more of a path to playing time, but I wanted to give you the Galaxy Brain options as well. Hope you guys liked the video. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment down below. I appreciate you guys being here. Really hyped to be back for football season, so I wish you the best of luck in your drafts. Look out for another video here, over there.
He's a legend.